Hello and welcome to Theology on Tap. I don't know if you have raised any children or not, but just out of my curiosity, what do you tell them when they say to you, your children say to you, life isn't fair, this isn't fair? Because I know that most people would say life isn't fair. But yeah, when I was given that chance, when my kids were to ask me, well, this isn't fair, I would try to explain to them why it is fair rather than just saying life isn't fair, because I don't know if it is true if life is unfair. Well, I guess in a way it could be unfair. I was born in Korea, South Korea, so therefore, I didn't have a chance to play basketball at an earlier age. I started playing basketball when I was in high school. That was the first time I played any kind of organized ball. I was good enough to make the team and whatnot, but, I was years behind everyone else. So you could say in that way, yeah, it isn't fair. I wasn't born to jump, 45 inches like some of the NBA players do. I could barely do 24 inches. So, yeah, in that sense, you could say life isn't fair. But the problem is when you look at it that way, then you could look at anyone in any circumstances and say it isn't fair. We live in a time where, there are a lot of people who are saying there are white privileges and whatnot. But if you really think about it, there are privileges to any race, right? Because culturally, I know there are Asian privileges as well. Well, I don't know if it's a privilege, but the culture allows us to, I think, study more and take it more seriously. So therefore, a lot of Asians in America, we do very well financially. So in a sense, it was a privilege. Also that Asian parents usually didn't get divorced. Now, these days, I think there are a lot of parents who are getting divorced. But usually, even if, I could use my grandparents and my parents as examples. I don't think they get along very well. I don't even know if they married for love. And maybe we should talk about that next time. Because, I don't know, is marrying for love better? Or is it better to marry because, arranged by your family, maybe? Who is to say what is better? Anyway, so is life fair? So one way you could look at it, life isn't fair. However, another way to look at it is life is fair because we are given every opportunity to make better for ourselves at any given time, I guess. So instead of looking at it in the sense that life isn't fair, life sucks, we have an opportunity to look at the world and say life is fair if I could put my time and my work and my love for whatever I do. And then you could say life is fair because, we could get out of any circumstances we want in most cases. So I want to go over Cain and Abel because it is the first story that is given to us after the fall. The children of Adam and Eve, they're growing up and whatnot. And we got Cain and Abel. Two children that are mentioned. I'm sure Adam and Eve had a bunch of other people. They're supposed to have lived 700-800 years or more. But think about that, right? How many children you could have at that span of time. Anyways, by the way, to be married to one person for 700 years or so, that's kind of crazy. Yeah. But we know, Bible says in Genesis chapter 4, Cain was a tiller of the ground, and Abel was the, what did Abel do? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Which one was it? Abel was keeper of flock. Cain was tiller of the ground. All right? So Abel had animals, Cain had fruits and vegetables kind of things. All right. So in the course time, Bible says, Cain brought an offering to the Lord of the fruit of the ground. Abel also brought the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portion. Now, they gave their respect to God by give offerings. But Bible says, Lord had respect for Abel and for his offering, but for Cain and for his offering, he did not have respect. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. All right. Now, we don't know 100% sure why God accepted one and rejected the other. Well, it doesn't really say rejected. Didn't really have much respect. Now, if you look at New Testament, I guess the conclusion of the people that study this story says, maybe Cain already had evil in his heart. But then maybe the evil came out because of the fact that God would not accept his offering like he was accepting, Abel's offering. So who is to say for sure what happened? But looking at this, you could say, this isn't fair. It isn't fair. They're both working. They're both giving offering to God. But why did God accept one and did not accept the other? I don't know. What does God do? What he does? I mean, God could do whatever he wants. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. But that's just the way life seems to be. Now, is that fair or unfair? It really depends on how you look at it. On verse 6, it says, Cain became very angry and his countenance fell. So obviously he did not like it. It's like raising two kids. If you have more than one kid, you know how it is. One kid, parents seem to put more time, I guess, or love more. I can't say God loves him more, but favors one more than the other. Yeah, I guess it always happens. I don't know. So one may grow up fine, the other one might not. I know in my family it was kind of like that. My brother was the smart one. He got straight A's all the time. My parents had like high hopes for him, so obviously he went to good school and he did well. He does well. He's going to retire very rich. I, on the other hand, I was a stupid one in the family, and my parents always told me that I was stupid, that I can't really get anything done except to help them out in their business. So obviously, my parents favor one more than the other. I'm not saying they love me less. He just favor one more than the other. So obviously, my confidence level as far as making in the world was not as high as my brother's. It just happens, Anyways, but then what's important, however, is the coming part of the story when Cain did not respond very well, because we could get angry. I could be angry at my parents for not saying nice things about me and saying nice things about my brother. So Cain was very angry and his countenance fell. And I think that seems to be the problem. When we're not accepted, when we're rejected, when we feel that we're rejected, when we feel that life is unfair, then we could get very angry and our countenance could fall. And if you look in the world today, I'm sure it's been like this from the creation of time, but these days, when you watch the news and whatnot, everybody's angry, right? President Trump is angry at the press and everybody who's trying to kick him off as the president. And the press is very angry at the president. The press is always angry at the Republicans. The press is always, and to a point where now we're figuring out they're coming up with, their own stories. They don't report stories. They make their own stories. So the press is very upset. There is the Black Lives Matter. They're very angry. There's the other group. I forgot. There's so many different kind of groups that come around being very angry. There are women that are very angry. There are men that are very angry. Different races are very angry at each other. So there's a lot of anger out there, And then on top of that, we got family problems and everything else. So obviously, we could get very angry in life. So Cain was very angry. His countenance fell. On verse 6 it said, and the Lord said to Cain, now this is the important part. The Lord said to Cain, why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Why is your countenance fallen? And to me, when I first had children, this is something that I took into my own heart, because raising kids, we could lose a lot of patience. Right? And I know that with my family, including my wife and my kids, every time I got angry, I would always take a step back and ask this question. And I think sometimes we should say this, why are we so angry? And I would sometimes get so angry at my kids or at my circumstances, I would take a step back and ask, why are you so angry, man? Why are you so angry? And I would take a little time to just think about it. Think about why I'm so angry. And whatever the reason that I could come out in my mind was not good enough. It never was good enough for me to be angry. Never. So if I could just kind of think about why I was kind of losing my patience, getting angry, going down on myself, so I take a step back, real quickly think about it, and then my anger will be gone. It actually works. So, to a certain point, I'm very proud to say that I have never really yelled at my children. I never yelled at them. I talk to them about what's right and wrong and why I think it's wrong for them to be a certain way and not, things like when children. But never did I, raise my hands on them or raise my voice. Never. Well, not that I could think of. My son, my older one said, I did yell at him one time. One time, and he still remembers. Anyway, but I think when you're angry at the government, angry at anything, angry at, different races and the government, the police, whatever, maybe we should take a step back and ask the question, why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Why is your countenance fallen? And God actually gives the answer to it. He says, if you do well, shall you not be accepted? If you do well, shall you not be accepted? Do well. It's not so much of why should I or whatnot, but just do well. And if we could just take a step back and just ask ourselves, I should just do well and do what is right. Instead of thinking about how unfair life may be, just focus on the day and do well today. Do good today. If you do good, you shall be accepted. But if you do not do well, if you not do what is right, he says sin is crouching at the door. It desires to dominate you, but you must rule over it. You must rule over it. Right? What is really interesting, however, I don't have the book with me, but if you look at Peshitta, the Aramaic Bible of Genesis chapter 4, it is really interesting how there's a little difference here. It says, if you do well, you shall be accepted, but if you do not do well, right? If you don't choose to do well, then it actually says, in this version, it says sin is crouching at the door. It says, go to your brother. On an Aramaic version, it says, go to your brother, right, and dominate him. That's what it seems to say. I wish I had the book and Aramaic version of it. But if you read the Aramaic version of it, it's totally different. And I like the Aramaic version because it doesn't mean to say if you do well, you will be accepted. If you don't do well, you're going to sin, and that sin will dominate you. It actually says something else where if you don't do well in this situation, especially because he thought that his brother he was hating his brother, or he didn't like his brother, it says if you do well, you will be accepted. But if you don't, right, if you're not going to do well, it says go to your brother, and dominate him, or let him become your subject. And it's kind of like God giving a choice to Cain to do one or the other. Do well, get along with your brother. All things gonna turn out good. If you don't do well, you're gonna end up, right, ruling over your brother. And I like that version a lot because it kind of answers a lot of the questions that I had, at least, is that Cain, instead of doing well, wanted to dominate his brother to a point where he, murdered his brother. That's how much of a dominance and the arrogance he got, right? Because I read somewhere, I forgot who said it, but someone said arrogance and resentments and what they all go together. You can't. It's part of it's a part of a group. All right, you can't separate them. Right, arrogance, resentments, and depressions, and they all kind of go together. And what it seems to say is that if you think it's not fair, right, that your brother's offering is accepted, yours is not, God is saying you should focus on your responsibilities and do better, right? Do well, do good, and then you're going to be accepted. But if you're not going to do that, the only other choice is to dominate someone else, right? Rule over someone else. And I think that's what the world seems to want to do, is that instead of focusing on what I'm able to do good in my own responsibility, instead of doing that, we want others to fall. And I think that's where hate comes from, right? And I think it's an important story. And I thought I'll share that because it was fresh in my mind. And hopefully we could just think, right? Just to think and ask ourselves, why are you so angry? Why are we so angry? Just do well, do good, focus on the day, right? Because the other choice, basically, if you don't do too well, the other choice is to dominate someone else. And we see that on the news all the time. one religion to another, a religion to a non-religious, atheist to religion, Democrats against Republicans, man versus woman, white versus black, all these things. We just want to rule over another. Instead of that, what God is saying is to do good. Focus on that, and you shall be accepted. All things work out for good, right? It's simple, very simple, and I like that. Instead of talking about theologies and whatnot. Anyways, God bless you. Thanks for joining me today. I hope, maybe we should all just think, right, of saying, well, we're so angry. God bless. I'll see you next time.